If there's one point above all that I hope I can make clear, it's that I believe in Broderick Jones. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. I covered the Steelers practice yesterday, the first one on the south side, now that camp has closed up in Latrobe. And there's no way, after that debacle the other night, involving the offensive line and specifically involving Jones, that he wasn't going to be the center of attention. And of course, he was. When it looked like it might even be possible that Jones would be talking to reporters, something he didn't do after the game against Buffalo Saturday night, whole group of cameras and microphones and everybody else gathered around his stall. And when Jones set himself and said, okay, I'm ready to go, this one super annoying reporter asked the first two questions.
Brod, what did you see on film from the other night, and how do you respond to it?
Just got to be better. For me, I always, for us as an offense, I feel like we try and always get that extra emphasis on starting fast and, being physical. And, for me, I feel like that I just didn't set the tone from the beginning of the game, So, just got to continue to get better each and every day and, just keep going from there, continuing to grow. Me?
Are you healthy?
I'm as healthy as I'm going to get, with the season coming up. But everybody always playing week in and week out with some minor injury or something that they got to push through. So
now, I got to tell you, there's a lot that I like about the way Jones answered both of my questions there. Because to the first one, what did he think of his performance Saturday? He offered zero excuses, as well as zero indication that he'd been trying to do any sort of justifying of how he'd performed. He just said, I've got to be better. That's how you handle that. When I asked him about his health, he could have very reasonably cited the big and very visible elbow brace he's been wearing on his right arm ever since he banged that thing up early in Latrobe. He didn't do that at all. In fact, later, he would insist specifically that the brace has nothing to do with anything, even though at different stages of the camp in St. Vincent, he was acknowledging that it forced him to adjust his blocking to an extent. Is he all the way telling the truth? Probably not. Is he being influenced to an extent by his head coach, with Mike Tomlin just having minutes earlier reiterated that he doesn't want to hear about excuses whenever the subject of Jones's elbow came up, and that he's only interested in seeing how Jones responds Saturday afternoon in Detroit? There's no way that message wasn't relayed firsthand by Tomlin to Jones before Tomlin would go public with it. There's also no way that Tomlin, befitting his coaching style, isn't to a degree trying to instill something a little bit extra in the kid, into someone who's going to be a really important part of this franchise's future. And I get that. I get all of it. I get where Jones, even though he didn't say so, naturally would have been and could have been affected in attempting to block a bulldozer like Greg Rousseau while he's, hedging with one of his arms. I'd never want to find out, but I'm guessing that assignment's pretty tough as is. Never mind operating with a handicap. But what I'm expecting to take away from all this, meaning expecting moving forward, first is that Jones will in fact have himself a really strong showing against the Lions. Why? Because he's got a history of mental toughness. He showed mental toughness in his rookie season, and he sure showed a ton of it while in college. 2, he's a really good football player. This sort of thing doesn't happen to him. And in fact, it didn't happen to him at all as a rookie. When he was asked yesterday if he could recall having games like that at any point in his life, and you'd have to think that someone just of his size and stature and strength alone wouldn't have had many, his response was maybe 1 or 2. And he might have been stretching that. But I'll reiterate, there hadn't been even one such occasion in the NFL until this. And 3, and just take this one on a more intangible level, if you will. I've had a lot of conversations with this kid over the past year and a half. And I feel like I've gotten to know him as well as any young player on the roster. And I'm here to tell you that he's a competitor. He's not someone who's going to back off from this challenge. He's going to run to it. To semi-paraphrase one of the head coach's favorite sayings, he has that in him. He has what you want in him. I've seen him light up for AFC North football. I've told you guys many, many times, to me as a reporter, one of the most important things that I do in covering this team is to look around a room, whether it's home or road, after they've played an AFC North game, win or lose. And this young man, at season's end, when the Steelers beat the Ravens in that ridiculously cold game in Baltimore, he was ready, I am telling you this, to go back on that field and play the Ravens twice more that day if he had to. He was talking out loud. He was yelling things. He was looking and sounding a little bit irrational, but that's how they are after AFC North games. That's how Minkah Fitzpatrick was after that insane opening day performance that he had in Cincinnati a couple years ago. This kid's an AFC North offensive lineman. This kid's a Steeler. If he's got a significant elbow issue, and I can't imagine that he does, since he's not, skipping any games or even skipping any practices, then he's going to be just fine. When we come back, J1Q.
This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar.
And today's J1Q comes from Chris, who says, DK, since Jaylen Warren might be out for a bit, will Jonathan Ward be ready since he had a hamstring issue as well? Or is that going to set him back too? Ward seemed like he could carry the load and was pretty good on special teams. Chris, I've got the best possible answer to your question about Ward. I don't think it's going to matter. My impressions, and bear in mind that once the practices move from Latrobe to the south side, the media isn't permitted to report what we see unless we have it confirmed verbally by participants. That's just a long-standing agreement with the team. But I can tell you that everything that I picked up on yesterday would strongly, and I mean strongly, suggest that Warren will be fine. Now, that's as of right now. That's barring any sort of regression or re-injury or anything like that. But Mike Tomlin himself had the following to say about Warren's status. He's out probably for this week, but not anything that's a long-term concern. End quote. So what I could share with you is that what Tomlin assessed there sure sounded like it was on the money. I think Jalen's going to be fine. I think you're going to see the Steelers functioning with both of their starting running backs. I think you're going to see the Steelers functioning with their full actual offense, meaning both of the tight ends, all of the heavy formations that Arthur Smith has set up, all of the various movements and schematics that we've been able to see through training camp, all of the deep balls that we've seen thrown, most of those by Justin Fields, but they've been there. Almost none of which, incidentally, was on display the other night against the Bills. And I'm going to tell you, no matter how silly it'll sound after that exhibition, that I remain excited about what this offense can do. I remain hopeful that there can still be another addition to the wide receivers depth chart, or maybe even atop that depth chart in a way. And yeah, I remain wanting to see more of Fields, not less. But I'm excited. I'm excited about what this group can do offensively. And as I joked with one of the players yesterday, if Broderick Jones is your biggest problem, you don't have any problems, do you? This individual just shook his head, laughed, and said, no, not really. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers, and we're going to do another one of these tomorrow.